There's not as many reports as there were in previous years because the dropouts and graduates are now going to come from end of year. And you can see the report linkages here, right? So report 1.1 is going to be your annual enrollment count. And there's a supporting report that's the student list. And that's the general theme here, right? So if we look at another important report, 1.17, we call it by nickname the LCFF report, but the official title is FRPM EL Foster Youth Count. The student list is here. Kyron highlighted in green all the reports that are required for certification. And those are going to be the little green ones. But just as important are the red or orange reports, whatever color this is, because how do you reconcile a count if you don't have the student list? If the data in your student information system or your SED system doesn't match what the report totals are, how do you find the discrepancy? And that's where you have the student list. You can find out which student is missing by SSID or name by using those reports. And so there's a lot of reports that you need time to go through, come through, and it's probably not, shouldn't be you. That's where you have to solicit the data stewards and try to get your program managers, whether it's your language of instruction program for or English language instruction program specialist, whether it's your GATE program administrator, whoever it is, you need to get them to take ownership because they know the students, they should know the counts, unless that's also part of your purview. That's really who needs to be reviewing those reports.
So just to add, on this next slide, you have the additional supporting reports. These are the reports that you could look at to be able to see any additional information. So if you notice, there's a disabled report. So starting this year, 1.6, 1.7, 1.9, 1.10, 1.11 will be disabled. So that means any graduates and completer information that will be collected based on your end of year 3, as I've mentioned earlier. So that's why they're disabling that. However, for those dropouts, you still have additional dropout reports, supporting reports that you could generate. You have 1.12, you have your list, you have your 1.14, and you have your student profile 8.1B and 8.1C. So these are additional reports that you could look at. And this is not accounted for in the aggregate report. So these are just reports you can basically reference for additional information. Then of course you have, if you're a COE, you have your COE LCFF counts. These are also additional reports that you could refer to. It's a snapshot report, and this will include the counts and list of LCFF for the COE level.
Good Lord, Kyron, that's a lot of information. Or should I say, great Scott.
Yep. Yeah, well, if you're overwhelmed, we can help you look for a flux capacitor, especially if you want to escape 2020 and go back in time. But if we're discussing CALPADS, then of course we can just, refer you to the report mapping guide. Okay, Nate, can you show them where the report mapping guide is?
Sure, let me.
So it's in the CALPADS user manual. They basically make sure that these documents are updated when corrections are made. They're assigned different submissions or analysts. Shout out to Paul, to Gary, to Alex, and to Angela for giving us this information. We just basically make it legible for LEAs.
And by we, Kyrie means him. I did it initially, but he really does the updating. I don't want to take any credit for his hard work. But I was trying to emphasize there's two ways to get there, right? You can get there through the functionality selection, and that allows you, to select what reports you want to look at, whether they're self versions or snapshot ODS, county reports, but also you have your report mapping guide. It's a direct link here, and you kind of have the same thing going on, except for it went directly to snapshot ODS. Um, and
Yeah.
so, and so, if this is just a landing page, and you could select the report you want to look at. So, Kyron did mention LCFF, so we're kind of jumping ahead here. 1.17, it's an aggregate report. And then you have a description of the report, right? And the students that are included. And then you have kind of like selection criteria here. The report, if it's a snapshot report, it's as of census day, right? And then these are the students that are included, basic selection criteria. And then it describes the filters that you can use to narrow your report. The filter section is particularly useful because it has notes in there, like the Title I filter includes students ages 5 through 17 based on whole years. So this tells you that some of your TK students are not going to be included if they're not age 5. Some districts allow the entrance of early TK students, students that do not meet TK criteria. And so even though they're going to be KN students and should be reported because end of year takes TK counts, they're not included for the purposes of
Yeah.
LCFF. Or
So
if you have 12th graders or high school students that are 18 years old, you can see they're not included in Title I counts because it's 5 through 17. So that's, the report filters is a good section. And then you have an image, and this is added because it's going to help you map down below. And it specifically tells you where the column, like for direct certification 8, you would have a count here, or let's just use 7, migrant program. There's one student at Aloha Elementary. So you would go down to 7, and it will tell you education program code 135, membership date is equal to or less than census day, which is, technical jargon, meaning the student's eligibility date was before census day. And then, it's just the selection criteria. And then, your total unduplicated count is 11. You'd come down here and see that, and it says the total equals columns 9 and 10, and students counted only once, regardless of multiple participation. So you would look at 9 and 10, so it's your unduplicated free and reduced meal counts here, and EL eligible. However, the student is only counted once. So if a student is an EL student and eligible for free and reduced meals, they're only going to be counted once. So this count, 85, does not exactly equal 9 and 10. That would be 87. So we know there's 2 students that are in both buckets, right? And so that's the purpose of the mapping guide, to kind of help you make sense of the calculations that are involved in the reports. And there's one for pretty much every report. I don't know if you wanted to add to that before we go through the reports, Kyron.
let's go through the reports.
All right.
The mapping guides haven't been updated yet to cover the changes in the LCFF, but that should be updated soon. So just
Neither
submit,
have the report slides.
yeah, just submit the your files first.
All
Really,
right.
yeah.
So this is report 1.1. It's your annual enrollment count. This is what is provided to the federal government, right? And so you can see the subgroups that are listed here. And that's why Kyron kind of focused on them in the training. And then you see the socioeconomically disadvantaged list. And so this is that group of students that include the parent ed level as well.
And then just to be aware, the 1.1 will not have the same criteria of the that the LCFF has with regards to your program 181 and 182. So your socioeconomically disadvantaged counts might be lower. Um, compared to the LCFF.
And then this is the supporting report, and it looks very similar, but you can see that it would have the student name, the SSID, some of the demographic information, as well as grade level. But then if they fall into one of the subgroups, it's indicated with a yes. And so you see a Y here because they're in the socioeconomically disadvantaged subgroup. So it's just, it helps you see the individual student level detail. Paul likes to describe them as more granular. And then you have report 1.5. This is a version of 1.1. It's a supporting report, but then there's a breakdown of ethnicity here, and then individual race, right? And so, and then the percentage of your enrollment as far as that particular race that was reported. Whenever you see these little arrows in the reports, that means you can expand the report to show enrollment status, grade, gender, so on and so forth.
And then if you reported a student with multiple race codes, this report will also explain how they categorize the student in what bucket they put it in.
And then this report looks like we're doing, just a few of the reports here. 1.117, this is a bigger view than what we provided when we did the user manual. And you can see each subgroup is here. Whether or not you reported the student with the program record 181, 182, these are the students that are income eligible for free and reduced lunch. They did your traditional application. Then you have your foster youth, your tribal foster youth, that's new. Your homeless, that's program. Migrant, that's a program that you're submitting. So this is all information coming from your student information system, with the exception of foster and tribal foster, or I guess maybe tribal foster is going to come from your
program.
Yeah, and then your direct certification. And direct certification and foster are automatically populated. You can verify the student status, but that's coming from CALPADS. And so all of these students, and a student could be migrant and homeless, or foster and qualify for the free reduced meal. But all of these subcategories are going to be counted here, but it's unduplicated. So if the student appears in multiple buckets, they're counted only once. Then if the students are EL, and so students that are English language or English learners that may not be in any of the FRMP or PM groups, they're also included, right? And so you have your English learners, those eligible for FRPM, and then they're going to be added in this last thing. But the key is it's unduplicated, so you're not going to be able to add them up across the board and expect to see your totals. And so that's where the report mapping guides come into place, because they explain that. They also explain, like I said, in the filters, why some students may be missing. They may not be between the ages of 5 and 17. And then supporting report for that is the 1.18. Again, you can see the theme here. You have an SSID, a student's name, information about the student, and then the meat of the report, how the student qualified for the report. In this case, you can see that there's a student has an NSLP program 181 record.
Mariana was
I'm not
asking.
taking any questions right now, Kyron.
Okay, fine.
No, no. Go ahead.
Okay, so there's a distinction between those foster columns. So foster youth is auto populated based on state matching. So if you have foster on 5.6 and 7, then and that foster's date is on census day, then of course they will be included on this count on this report. For the foster youth program, though, it's submitted by LH. You have to submit a student program record for those students and mark them with the program code 193.
Or the
And,
tribal foster youth.
Yeah, tribal foster youth.
and then moving on, report 2.1 is your Title III eligible immigrants count, right? And so it's just, two columns: the school the student attends, and then the number of eligible immigrants found. And remember, the criteria is defined in CALPADS, right? So the student has to be an immigrant. That Kyron already said, the student can't be born in the U.S. or Puerto Rico. They have to be enrolled in less than 3 years. And so there's an indicator that asks you that in the student information record. And if that indicator is not marked, regardless of the other criteria, the student's not going to be an eligible immigrant. And I mention that because it's a question, right? All the time. Why is this student considered an eligible immigrant, or why is this student not? And it usually comes down to that indicator. It asks you if the student is enrolled less than 3 years. And then the third part of criteria is the age. 3 through 21 is the age, right? So sometimes you will have a validation error if you have a student that's a preschool student that you don't, populate all the data for, because they need that for Title III.
And of course, since this is coming from your SINF, please be aware, be cognizant that CALPADS will be using the effective start dates of that. So the effective dates should overlap census day and overlap your enrollment.
Thank you, Kyron. And then report 2.8, English language acquisition status count by primary language. And so this is just identifying the students with non-English only statuses. And you can see that it'll list the primary language and then the resulting status of those students. How many of your Spanish speaking students are EL, IFEP, RFEP, or TBD? The primary language is identified in the home language survey and reported in the CELA file. So that's where this report is getting the primary language from. And then any EL or IFEP status will come from LPAC. Those counts come from LPAC, right? And then your RFEP, you would be reporting when a student has RFEP or changed from EL to RFEP, or if they're still TBD on census day, which many students may be this year, they'll show up here. 2.9, English language acquisition status, census day comparison. So from census day to census day, the count of your English language acquisition statuses. It's just a comparison from one year to the next. How many ELs you have this year, how many you had last year. And then 2.12, English language acquisition status. It's the RFEP report, and the logic has recently changed, I think, or this one is the reclassification of ELs to RFEP. I'm not sure, but I think this is the report where the logic changed. It used to be from census day to census day. And I think now it's a look at the entire academic year. I think they're trying to change the report to be representative of an academic year rather than census day to census day. And if that is in fact the case, the academic year would be last year, the entire academic year from last year, I would imagine. It recently came out, was described in a flash. I apologize, I'm not well versed in it. It's something that we can all reference by going to the flash and verifying, but I just want to make sure you understand, if you've looked at this report in the past, it's very likely that the calculation is different. And so, it may not include any students for this year. It may be all last year from 6/30, 2019 to or 7/1/2019 to 6/30, 2020.
You can always check the report mapping guide too later on once it's updated.
And then the certification reports 8.1, A through C, the student profile list. They're supporting reports, definitely. And when you have people that do not have CALPADS accounts and you want to give them information on your students, this is the most descriptive report that we have. You can see that it was cut in half. and there's columns. It's not complete. It's not like giving someone read-only access. However, if you wanted to provide a report for somebody, this would be a one to provide. It gives a good picture of the student's profile. And then 16.1, they were introduced last year. These are the reasons why your SELPA has to certify or approve FALL1. 16.1, students with disabilities education plan by primary disability count. And so you're going to have the education plan type. So that may be an IEP, a IFSP, or, I think ISP, the 200, the private school students.
Mhm.
And then you have your primary disability listed at the top. And that's just telling you how the student's eligible, what disability. And there's, I think, 13 disability criteria that are recognized by the federal government. They're outlined in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And so that's the criteria here. And again, students can have more than one disability category in CALPADS, but the primary disability is the one that's going to show up on this report. The 16.2, students with disability count by federal setting, is the least restrictive environment. The plan setting code here is also the least restrictive environment, right? You want to provide the student their special education services in the least restrictive environment. And so you have your primary disability categories, and then the learning environment in which the student's in, regular classroom, public day school, separate school, residential facility, so on and so forth. And then the percentage of general education, the percentage of time your student is in the general education population, right? And so, if a student is receiving speech services, how much of the time are they in that regular classroom environment? How much of the time are they getting a specific instruction to help develop their speech? 16.3, students with disabilities list. This is the supporting report for 16.2 and 16.1. It has a lot more information about the students. You have your meeting information. This is the record. This comes from the record that has included the student in the count, right? So students may have multiple records. This is the record that's going to include the student in the count. So the meeting date and the meeting type is going to be featured. And then you're going to have, the plan information, again, the least restrictive environment or the program setting. Then you have whether or not the students are transition students. And then if, I don't know if this is still going to be included, Kyron, the work-based learning.
Yeah, maybe that's on another report later on, or
But
they,
so
yeah.
So just like you all, we were thrown into fall one at the heels of end of year certification. So a lot of this is new to us and we're just coming to grips with it right now. And then 16.5, right? 16.5 and 16.6 are related to the services. You have your primary disability listed at the top, and then you'll have your service category, the reports. You have these little things here that you can filter. You can see the service that the student's going to be receiving here, and then the service category, and either together or by one they can be filtered for. And then 16.6 is the student list of the same report. It has the same little functionality and filters, and you get more details of the service, like the service location, the frequency, the duration of each service, information about the disability and the plan type, so on and so forth. These are the reports that are of particular interest to the CELPAS. When you're submitting data, and if you submit data early, you're not under pressure to look at your snapshot, revision time, and your submission or your posted date and time. However, if you are submitting data and looking to see how that data is affected in CALPADS or the changes are, you go to your view submission status screen, and if it says revision complete next to your submission, this was a student program record, the file was submitted, the status changed to revision complete, you have a revision date and time, right? This is on the view submission status screen. You could come down and compare it. You have your snapshot create date, and you can see if this time is the same or before this time. You can expect that data to be included in that revision. If not, you know that this data is still processing. If you don't have revision complete, you don't even need to worry about it because it's not going to be included in your revision.
So right now, if you submitted data to CalPADS for this new year, your file status should be should go as far as revision in progress.
And
they are sitting there. Yeah.
And I'm glad you said right now, Kyron. Earlier I said the snapshots may be processing. I went back while Kyron was speaking. We got a note saying the snapshot reports are available. So if you're using the left navigation in CalPADS, you can look at these reports, the snapshot version of these reports. Those are available. However, not necessarily your snapshot. You can't look at your errors and warnings yet, but the reports are available through the left navigation.